Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and now that the Emic Trunkheart fusion has come to a close in Raid Shadow Legends, I wanted to upload a video talking about how to build this guy effectively and everything that goes into him as a champion, like how to use him and how he grades out and all of that. Now that we have the perspective of being able to acquire him, let's get into it. Alrighty, so first of all, we had a couple different polls over on the community tab of the channel where we asked, were you able to finish the Emic Trunkheart fusion? And then also, what were the first reaction grades to the first time his kit was revealed? And he was grading out really well. 52% is an insane clip for the community voting on him as an S tier champion. So people were pretty hyped about him as a fusion. I believe that sentiment has gone down a little bit over time. If I re-hosted this poll, it would probably be like 30 something percent for S tier, but definitely a really solid champion. And then also, when I asked if you were able to finish the Emic Trunkheart fusion, we had a 57% of yes. So for those of you out there in the community that are caring enough to watch YouTube videos and vote in polls, almost 60% of people actually finishing the fusion is a very high completion rate compared to some of the other stuff we've seen, because either people A, don't get interested in doing the fusion because they don't believe it's going to be worth the effort, or B, they end up messing something up along the way, or they don't have enough resources and all of that, and they don't end up being able to finish it. And yeah, also the reason I say that 52% S tier is so insane is because this new promotional champion coming up, Sun Wukong, is only getting a 15% S tier, and I think he's pretty solid, and he has some pretty crazy things in his kit, like AoE buff steal while blocking buffs and all of that. So only 15% for him, and it was 52% for Emic Trunkheart. So when it comes to actually building him as a champion, we do need to understand what we're going for here within the kit. So I'm not going to read it word for word, but we're going to be placing shield with our A1 here, and we're going to be increasing the value of shield on the ally with the lowest HP by 25%. But Plarium did adjust that to have that maximum there of cannot exceed 10,000 HP, because people were like pairing it with rare champions that do damage based on how much shield they have, and then they were doing ridiculous billions and billions of damage in the clan boss. So Plarium had to kind of step in and put a cap to this A1 right here. And then on the A2, we're getting an AoE that's going to place shield scalable with his HP. So we do definitely want to stack a good amount of HP on him. And then we're going to be decreasing the cooldown of all ally skills except for himself by 1 turn. So it can be handy to have him either, if you build him super fast, have him not do the A2 because you want to wait until you have cooldowns to lower, or build him with high HP and towards the back end of your rotation speed wise. That way he's always going after some of your allies have used some of their big abilities, so you can get value out of lowering the cooldown. And then he's also going to be unlocking some of those special unkillable compositions, because he's one of those champions that places the unkillable on all allies for 2 turns. And then he'll also do special things like taunt, which is a new mechanic in Raid that isn't very common among very many champions, and that can be a mechanic that helps you explore the Phantom Shogun's Grove, where you can get a decent amount of value out of having that taunt buff. But then also, he has one of the coolest passives in the game, in my opinion. So when attacked while under a shield and he places a taunt on himself, he's going to have a 50% chance that books up to a 75% chance of increasing the cooldown of a random skill on the attacker by 2 turns, not even just 1. Anytime you can get passive CC or buff manipulation or cooldown manipulation just as a passive with no cooldown on that passive, it is a really insane ability, and it's going to give you a lot of consistent value just kind of ancillarily. And also, whenever an ally's HP drops below 20%, we're going to increase the damage dealt by that ally by 20%. So a synergy like Leorius, the champion that scales up his damage based on losing HP, now you can kind of synergize even better with that, and you could see a situation where a defensive team with like Emic and Leorius could really do some work in a PvP scenario. And he does also have an all battle HP aura if you're using him as the leader within your team. But anyway, when it comes to building him as a champion, the first thing we're going to want to ask ourselves is how much accuracy do we want on him, because his whole kit doesn't need any accuracy. But remember, he does have that super cool passive that you are going to need accuracy on, because you can't manipulate opponent cooldowns without having accuracy land that effect. So if you're going to be using him in live arena or PvP or something like that, you really want to make sure you've got enough accuracy within your arena tier to make sure you're getting the procs off of the hits on shield, increasing cooldown. It'll really help you snowball some of those like defensive tag team arena battles and all of that. So you could need 350, 400, 500, 600 accuracy, depending on whatever tier you're in, to make sure you're getting the consistent increasing of cooldown on your opponents. And the reason this is an important question to ask yourself as you go into building him is because if you're going to be using him somewhere like the Demon Lord, the Clan Boss, something like that, you really don't need any accuracy on him. You would want to be prioritizing different things and making sure you kind of speed tune him to be effective within that context, and that would be a stat that you can avoid there in the accuracy. So you really got to kind of pick which direction you're going to go with Emic as you dive into building him. For me personally, I did want to do some shenanigans in the live arena and test him in some defensive styles. Personally, I like playing the defensive style where we kind of sit back and snowball an advantage over time. So he kind of fits in with how I want to play as a Void Lego that could increase cooldowns and help me outscale opponents in the long haul. So I did want to kind of get enough accuracy to at least make him viable. But if you're looking for like a general utility build, you would also want to make sure you get a bunch of the HP stacked on him as well, so you can actually get yourself to the point where you are defensive and have enough shield to help your damage dealers and your squishy champions survive. So right now I got him in the 357 accuracy. That's not going to be enough to be viable. I'm going to need to mix and match and move things around if I want to use him more often and get that up closer to like 500 or 600 accuracy. But it's still going to be pretty impactful even if you don't get like that super cracked out ridiculous accuracy number, because you're still going to be landing it on a decent amount of the damage dealers and the utility champions at the turn meter boosters and stuff like that. And it's a passive. It's not like an ability within his kit that he's doing to like remove buffs or something. It's a passive where whoever's kind of hitting him when he has a shield, he's going to increase the cooldown, and you'll still be able to land it on like 60 or 70% of champions, even if you just have like a middling accuracy number. Because if I look at some of like the general utility people that I bring in to the arena, you got like Morta Macabre here at 230 resistance, he'd be fine there. You look at some of your like damage dealers or something like that, where you've got like a Rotos right here. My Rotos is at like 230 resistance. So I would definitely be landing those things with an Emic very consistently in those situations. So when it comes to actually placing gear on him, you're going to want to go with things like accuracy, speed, HP, and some of the usual suspects here on the numbers. The banner, again, is probably going to be accuracy if you want to use him in PvP, but remember, it's going to depend on the situation you're going with. We can go with HP on the amulet with some, you definitely want accuracy as a substat for him because you want to get it out of that slot. It's going to be a very important area to find accuracy on the amulet. For the ring, you're just looking for as much HP as you can get, basically. And I think it's pretty interesting to look out for the blood shield accessories, because we're going to constantly be giving him shield. And we don't need a ton of shield. We just need some shield there so that we're constantly getting the procs of when attacked under a shield. We've got a chance to increase those cooldowns. Then for some of the gear pieces on the boots, you'll probably want to try and go with HP boots. These are great right here because you get the HP and then the speed from ascending, and then you also have the speed substat that you can glyph up. And the only thing I'm missing is kind of like defense percent, and I wish it would have rolled a little bit better than that flat stat, but all these boots are very good. Then for the chest, ideally you're probably going to want the HP there on the main stat, and same with the gloves. And then we're just going to be looking for a bunch of speed and tankiness and accuracy as we can get it here on the gear slots. So when we get to the masteries discussion, again, it's going to be a similar story to the accuracy, where you really need to ask yourself where you're going to be using this guy. If you're using him in the Demon Lord or in only PvE, you may want to go like the offense route and take War Master or something. If you're lacking on the accuracy, like I am a little bit, you may want to go down the support tree and take that Eagle Eye tier 6. But also, you really want to kind of make sure you get some of these different things like lasting gifts, because this is going to help you keep the shield up longer, and then kind of helping take the things that are going to generate some of the accuracy. And then you've also got increasing value of shield and a couple handy things you can get here within the mastery tree. And I didn't take them in this specific setup, but these masteries on the left over here, the ones that increase the value of shield placed by champions if they have a certain effect going on, it can be really handy to help kind of save you in some of those clutch situations. And the difficult part about using him in PvP is you need a way to get there. So you need champions like in a bolster set or a tournament to help freeze things if your opponent is going first, because Emic isn't going to be great in a speed team. So you're going to need to kind of synergize with him to make sure you're utilizing enough mechanics to kind of get there where you can actually start to snowball and survive that first wave that your opponent is going to do for you. So an Emic PvP team is not going to be great in every situation. It's going to be hard to fill all of the roles that you need necessary to help you survive that first wave and then also deal enough damage to them. So probably going to be a little bit difficult to use him effectively in the live arena. He's going to be a lot better in the classic arena, where you can kind of pick specifically the teams that you'll be okay going up against and kind of set up in that defensive style to make sure you're going to be okay. Like this fight right here, they're going to have a hegemon, an arbiter, and all of that, but I'm going to be perfectly fine. I'll be able to survive the wave and then be able to have enough time to snowball and get things rolling. And then once I get to this point right here and I've survived that initial push, it's completely over. You kind of want to prioritize their reviver, and then you see the increased cooldown that I got right there from Emic. And it'll just be kind of a slow whittle right here. Like this team is going to be a super tanky one that doesn't have a damage dealer, because you kind of got to fill all of the roles. You need like the cleanse and the block debuffs and the CC to help get you to a point where you are snowballing. And then once they have debuffs and they're CC'd and you have all of your buffs on your team and you're kind of rolling, then you're set and you're ready to rock. And once the arbiter is down, it is game over, and you just kind of whittle them down with a defensive team like this. Now right here, when you get one of the revivers down, now you have to prioritize. They have another one here in Syl, and ideally you get the constant increasing of the cooldowns anytime they attack you, so you can kind of help give yourself enough time to whittle them down. And then once the Syl is down, their healing is going to be gone, and it's going to be easy peasy. So right there, you get the Syl down, and then it's just about whittling down these other two. So this is kind of a way you can play the hyper defensive style. The problem is the fights are going to take a long time, so you would probably want to try and bring a damage dealer with him and someone that can help you kind of get through these fights a lot faster, and to also be able to be on the offensive somewhere like the live arena. So like I said, it might be tough to make Emic really work super well there, because if I'm facing tougher teams that are closer to that like 300,000 plus team power, which is going to be really common up in like gold 5 and as you get into like tag team arena and stuff, it's going to be really tough for me to do enough damage to chew through them if I just build a super tanky team to whittle things down like I did in that classic arena fight. So if I was somewhere like here and I wanted to use Emic, I would probably have to remove one of my supports, either Duchess or Marichka, depending on the situation that I'm in. Or actually, in this situation, it would probably be best to remove the Torment, because I'm not going to get a lot of value out of him. So you'd have to kind of pick like your best 2 out of your top 3 or 4 supports if you want to work around getting Emic in the team to get those increase of the cooldowns and some of the sustain from the shields. So for a situation like this, I would really need someone who can do damage, and I would have to slide in something like that and get Rotos in here to be able to chew through that Duchess and take them down. And this team is going to be a little bit more of a challenge up there at that 300 plus power. Okay, so there we go. I guess if we win the speed battle and we go first, we just absolutely demolish them. So ended up really not being a challenge, but if they would have won the speed battle and went before me, then we would have ended up in a situation where they have some healing and they kind of get their buffs off, and I wasn't able to get a roll in here to have reliable buff strip, and they would have had a lot of healing with the battle and the different buffs that they were placing with their Duchess and all that. It would have been difficult for me to debuff them once they get the block debuffs from Duchess rolling. But as long as you win the speed battle, everything is good, and you get a turn, and Rotos runs in there and demolishes the Duchess. And there we go. So that one, and let's see if we can get a really difficult fight going here. Yeah, so something like this, where they are using Pythion Duchess and they've got Gorgid there to just completely wreck. This would be a really difficult fight that we'll see if the same team can take them down. We're going to have to kind of wait until Rotos can block revive and be able to kind of chew through everything. So this fight is just unfortunately going to have to get to that point, and we're going to have to hope that the Gorgid, there you go. So we got the Gorgid to target because of the taunt buff, and then we were able to increase cooldown of the skills on the Gorgid. So that was a place where Emic was super impactful. He had enough tankiness to survive that, and then also increase the cooldown to give me a little bit of time to catch up here and snowball. And yeah, that taunt is making the Gorgid target Emic, and he can't quite take him down. And then once we get like the strength and buff, also going to help out a ton. And then you get like the block damage and the unkillable. And we got to get our Rotos to a point where he can kind of start to take off and start blocking revive when he takes things down. And there we go, Rotos popping off. But the problem is when you have Pythion and a Duchess, it's going to be really difficult, and you really can't end the fight until you are able to block revive in some sort of way, so they can't keep snowballing like that. So you have to bring someone like Mortar Macabre or Rotos or somebody that can actually take people down and confirm it, or bring like a Lydia to block revive or something. See, because you can always get them to this point where it's like about to be over, and then the Pythion's able to snap call. But the Rotos is eventually going to keep destroying the HP and then eventually block revive and be able to kind of slowly get us there and whittle everything down as he keeps doing the Vitality Plunder. And you see the Duchess is already way easier to kill because of the destroyed HP. So it's like getting enough time to have all those Rotos abilities just kind of snowball over time, and Emic does kind of help with a situation like that because he can sit here and help you scale a little bit better by increasing all the cooldowns. And there we go. So definitely a slugfest, but able to be taken down with somebody like Emic. But I think he's gonna mostly settle into like a decent usable tier, and he might be a little bit hard to work around and fit in sometimes with a lot of those arena teams. So let's see what they've got for grades over on the HH Gaming site, and I'll see if there's any areas that I really agree or disagree on. So an overall grade of 4, I think that's pretty accurate. They grade on a 5 scale over there. I would say if I went like decimal perfect, he'd probably be like a 4.2 out of 5. So I feel like he does scale kind of closer to rounding off at the 4-star. I kind of agree with that. Clan Boss unlocks certain unkillable compositions, definitely pretty solid. Hydra, maybe a little bit high. I might go like 3.5 on Hydra. Doom Tower, yeah, 3.5, 4. Yeah, the Shogun, 4.5. I like that. That is pretty solid with the taunt buff. The shielding and the regular spider, yep, for sure, right there. I like that. Dragon, Golem. I think maybe a little bit better in the Golem than the Dragon. I might go like 4.5 Golem and 4 on Dragon. Everything else looks pretty good here. The book value of 10 out of 10, I might go like 8.5 or 9. I mean, he's definitely solid. It's going to depend on the player, of course. I think he's going to be super solid for early game players and would probably be a 10 out of 10 if they were able to get the Emic fusion done. For somebody who's a little bit more scaling towards the end game, he would dip a little bit on the book value, probably, especially if they already have like an unkillable composition and all that running. So I might go like 8.5 or 9 on the book value. But overall, yeah, I kind of agree with all of this. So I hope you enjoyed this look at Emic Trunkheart, and let me know your thoughts down below on if you've built him and your thoughts on the fusion and all of that as we kind of wrap this one up. The next fusion should be starting, honestly, within like the next 2 weeks. Plarium usually does these at about a once-a-month clip, so let's see if the next fusion is going to keep pace with Emic Trunkheart. I know we've got like the promotional champion coming pretty soon here, the super interesting Sun Wukong promotional champion, and then after that here in probably like 10 days or so, we'll probably start to get wind already of like a fusion or fragment type of champion. So I appreciate all of you. Have a good rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Peace.